Boundless Authenticity Podcast.
Karen Holton is an ET and Angelic experiencer, author, exopolitical ambassador, and host of the Quantum Guides show and Aliens and Angels podcast. Through her work as a transdimensional channel and holistic coach, Karen shares insights on awakening, ascension, and personal empowerment. Her book, Transdimensional, Meet the New Neighbours, explores her extraordinary experiences and is available on Amazon. Follow her journey and content across social media at Karen Holton TV. How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks so much for having me on your show, and thank you for the very, very nice introduction.
Yeah, of course. You're welcome. You're also the admin of the Boundless Authenticity Podcast group on Facebook. For anybody that wants to join and you're on Facebook, you can join in and share your posts. We recently had a very troubling issue happening there where there was a threat to democracy. So, that's the thing. I do my best on this show to bring people who I feel are authentic, but sometimes you get people that they just ask to be on and I let them come on and I'm benevolent towards them and everything. And I try to understand their opinions. And sometimes it doesn't really work out because there's, a thing going on where the person is a snake in the grass, so to speak. And that's kind of what happened. I have no problem dropping names. Nancy Thames, you will see her episode Time for Disclosure was on here. He'd also noticed that I was asking certain questions and I wasn't getting good answers to those questions because that person didn't know the answer to the question that they claimed to be an expert on. So I'm saying that because there's a lot of frauds out there and a lot of people that are looking to mislead you. And the issue that we had in the group was that Nancy took it upon herself to block and ban Karen from the group from posting her podcast stuff. It wasn't hurting anybody. Probably it was like 3, 4, maybe even 5 posts a day maximum. And meanwhile, Nancy's posting 25, 27 plus times a day. Absolute garbage, which is AI generated stuff that she's trying to pass off to people. That is her own wisdom that she's getting from alleged guides or sources or things like that. And a lot of it seems very violent. A lot of it was accusatory towards a lot of people. Like she was saying how Barbara Lamb is a false light prophet or some other weird shit like that. And you kind of have to be careful of people like that, because there's a lot of them out there coming out of the woodworks now that claim to have the only truth that there is, except that not just people who have lived a very long time, but people who are very wise eventually come to learn that multiple perspectives equal the truth. What is the truth? Nobody knows. Everybody's looking for it the same way. And until you expand your awareness and understand that you're probably wrong, but whatever you know to be true at the time is working for you, then that's the truth for now, if that makes sense. But anybody that is saying that somebody else is wrong and they're right, run from that person, because that is not how you treat people and that is not how communities thrive. That is the kind of attitude that destroys communities.
And it smacks of cultism.
Yeah. And when I confronted her about what she did, she basically threw a little shit fit and said that we needed to part ways. And I let her know that that's your choice. Everybody has a choice here on Boundless Authenticity. What you want to think, what you want to believe, how you want to behave, that is your choice. I'm not here to make anybody wrong for anything, even though I do say some things that are harsh sometimes. That's my opinion. It is not a fact. And so this show is not about making you think that I have all of the facts. Just do your own thinking. I don't want to say do your own research, do your own thinking, because thinking seems to be dead on this planet at the moment. And I don't know why. But that's my rant.
No, it's a good one. I feel a little bit double betrayed because I actually mentioned Nancy in both of my books, Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors and Transdimensional 2 Meet the Greys picture book. And because I felt that she was a valuable resource. But then something changed. I don't know what, but I had her on my show, I think on Aliens and Angels, and to talk about an article that she wrote. She claimed she wrote, and then she didn't seem to remember any of the details from the article. And I thought, that's really strange. Being an author myself, I put a lot of work into my material. Of course, I know what it says. I wrote it, right? And I used AI for some of the images, but I did not use AI at all for any of the content. In fact, it was presented to me because I struggled with the writing of my book, getting it put into language that people would enjoy. So instead of it just being boring and a bunch of facts, I wanted to bring the reader with me into the experience. So I really worked hard on every paragraph, and I wanted it to be from my heart. And I can't do that if I'm getting AI to do it. So somewhere along the line, Nancy started getting AI to write all her material. And the other thing is, and this is another little bit of a warning about AI. AI is giving her false information about many of our friends, about me, saying that we're part of the false distortion matrix and all this other weird stuff. So AI is being a little bitch, pardon my language, causing contentions between people. So, I don't really believe in it. I mean, I don't believe everything it says as being a fact. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I mean, we're all just chilling. We may highlight certain people on our show and stuff, but that doesn't represent who we are or what we believe necessarily. Even some of the things that we post about that we may appear to be sure about, we don't know for certain. I mean, we talk all of this stuff in spirituality, and we have no clue what we're really talking about. We're just throwing shit at the wall to see if it sticks because we only have our individual experiences and nothing else. There's a lot of people out there that are so convinced that the earth is going to blow up or that there's going to be this massive event that's going to lead to a new earth or whatever. And people have been saying that for God knows how long, and it hasn't happened yet. And there's a lot of people that hang their heads on ideas like that, but that is not practical. When you talk to people and they are swearing that there's a certain number of entities and they're all benevolent and they want humanity to ascend, don't hang your hat on that either. Like, go with your own experience, because if you aren't connecting with these sources yourself, the information coming from someone else can't really do anything to help you fully understand. You have to immerse yourself into the spiritual world and make sense of who you are at the core, and stop looking for other people to lead you and tell you what's true for you. That's not going to work. That's not a healthy way to do it. And I suspect that, the problem is that we are all like children that have never left high school. And you see these people who call themselves spiritual, and they thrust themselves in front of you and they're like, look at me, I have all this information. But they really don't. They really don't know jack shit. They wouldn't know a fart from their own elbow making a weird sound. They honestly wouldn't. And that's the problem with the internet, because the internet is a programming mechanism. It's a device for undercover cult leaders and military experts and CIA and other three-letter agencies to completely control what you think. And it doesn't mean that they themselves are doing it. They just have to put the seeds of information out there. And then you have idiots like the aforementioned who jump on board and want to be a part of something, want to have a sense of significance, and they're not doing it with their heart. After some time, it reaches a point where they're not doing it for any good reason other than to get attention or to seem like an expert. And Anybody that's reached any level of wisdom knows that community is about common unity. It's about the things that we can agree on and the ways that we can make our differences stronger for the group to bring us together in a more whole and complete way. And obviously, certain people don't know that. And that's really sad, I think. I see that in every area. It's really sad.
Yes, I agree. The other thing I wanted to say is I feel like people need to be an example of what they believe in. And so, for instance, I believe that everybody has their own right to their own perceptions and reality. I don't expect people to think like me, have my experiences. And I'm aware that a lot of this new stuff we're talking about, even the content of my book, it's hard to discuss because we're not given a conceptual framework to hang it on. We're not given the vocabulary or the words to express our experiences. And so we're all running it through our own perceptual arena. And I think really, if we took a room full of people and each one had his or her own perception and expressed it, I think that only by taking the whole group into consideration, you might be getting closer to what's actually going on. And in the meantime, we're grasping at straws. And I think it's important, at least for me, it's important not to set myself as any kind of a leader. And I don't want to get involved in cultism. There's so many cults out there. It's easy to fall into them. And that's not my purpose. My purpose is to give people an alternative perception that they can then go, no, I don't believe in that, or maybe elements of it ring true for people. But the whole thing is to get people thinking and to have them expand their awareness, I guess, which is what Unbounded Authenticity is all about, is raising consciousness.
Right. So with that, let's hear your experiences and your perspectives. Where did the idea transdimensional come about?
Well, Transdimensional, actually, I started it took me about 3.5 years to actually write my book. So the event happened in 2014. But I didn't want to tell people because I wasn't even 100% sure whether I was crazy or not, to be honest with you, because I'd never heard about these kind of experiences before. And 2017, my guides, which are my invisible beings who inspire me and share information. It's kind of like having an AI, but you don't have to go to AI. This is a built-in spiritual connection. And in 2017, I started getting pinged that I needed to go public with it. It was time for me to go public. And so I started gathering my thoughts in 2020. I had an assisted remote viewing session, and I have a being who I call Bob the Gray. That's not his real name, but he does not care what I call him. So he's happy. That's him up there. And I write about him in my book too. But anyway, he facilitated a remote viewing session and also helped to release more of my memories, because some of them I had and some of them I didn't have. And then I became involved with the Forbidden Knowledge News with Chris Matthew, and he invited me to do a conference, and I did a presentation of the material, and that's when I met Preston Dennett. And Preston said, Karen, do you mind sending me a digital copy of your presentation? I said, no problem, sent it to him. He shared it with Dolly Saffron, who is fairly well known as also an ET contact. And she verified everything I said in my presentation. And Preston said, Karen, I love your style of writing. Why don't you produce a book? And I said, okay. But seriously, it took me 3.5 years to write the book because it's the weirdest thing. When I'm writing about my experience, if I don't write it correctly, if I don't accurately portray what happened or what it was like for me, my guides would always interject and want me to change it and want me to improve it or want me to rewrite it. It was like almost like a group project. And then, of course, I had periods of time where I have concentration issues. I'm on the autism spectrum. So I had times where it was hard for me to concentrate. And anyway, so it took me like 3.5 years to produce the book. And then I got it published in December of 2024. I'm very happy. And then fairly quickly, the second book I published in January of 2025. And the goal of the second book was to reduce the fear, because people's knee-jerk reaction, as was mine in the beginning, is fear when it comes to looking at beings that look a little bit different than us. And I think it's important with what's going on and disclosure that people stay grounded and retain their critical thinking skills. And that's not always easy to do when you're in fear mode. So I thought the book would be helpful to help people to reduce their fear so they could remain grounded, think critically, make up their own decisions on what they believe, and not just be reacting out of fear. So that's sort of how the books came about. And I can't remember what else you asked me.
Yeah, that was just it, really. So, I mean, what is the premise of transdimensional? What does that mean?
Oh, yes. Okay, so I started writing the book and I was making good progress. And then around that, I think I started it in about 2020, because that's when everybody was locked down, and that's when we had the online conference that I with the Forbidden Knowledge Network. So anyway, I did not have a title. I did not know what to call it. But I thought part of the title would be funny, but also disarming, was to include Meet the New Neighbours, because this is a new concept of being transdimensional. So anyway, this is how it all happens for me, is at night while I'm sleeping. All of this happens for me at night while I'm sleeping. I wake up in the morning and I go, holy smokes, what an adventure. And then I write down, what happened. Anyway, I was given the word transdimensional. I didn't even know what it meant. So in the middle of the night, I wake up 4:00 in the morning with this word transdimensional. It was clearly given to me. I had no idea what it meant, but I knew it was important. So I'm going transdimensional. And then I got to remember that. And in the morning, I looked it up on my phone. I did a Google search and found out what it meant. I went, yes, that's exactly what's happening for me. And so I was given the title Transdimensional, and then I added Meet the New Neighbours. It's supposed to be a little bit funny, but also a little bit disarming, so that people can realize that there's probably many different races of ETs, more than I know about, but some of them are very friendly or even somewhat annoying, kind of like a new neighbor.
That's true. I mean, reasonably within an infinite universe, wouldn't there be billions? In the same way, there's so many different iterations of the human species. I mean, why wouldn't there be all these different variations of it? And it's very simplistic question. I'm sure everybody's thought of this or heard of it. Why would human beings be in isolation? Why would there just be one planet that has life on it and nowhere else? And I think where people get lost is... No, go ahead.
I was going to say, the only reason I can think of is some kind of social control by a small number of people who have the perception of power, the illusion of power, and they don't want to give that up. And so if we think that, the only spiritual leader is the Pope and the only world leader is, I don't know, could be whatever country you're in, and that's the only reason I could think of.
Right. Well, we know that isolation is a key step in brainwashing, so there you go.
That too, yeah.
I just say to people, I don't know when this is going to happen. We call it disclosure, but the word disclosure in a way kind of insists that this thing is happening in real time at a particular speed and it's going to be over soon. I don't think that's a reasonable assumption to make. Mm-mm. We're alive right now in this time and we're talking about it, but you know, the real revealing of things, if it's to happen, it's not going to be for a while. We're not going to be alive for it. We all have to kind of,
or we're already experiencing it for ourselves, which is the best kind of disclosure, I think.
Right. It kind of takes human beings a long time just to learn basic stuff. How long is it going to take us to learn acceptance? Well, we haven't been doing so well at it so far.
Yeah, I mean, we're not even accepting each other from different countries or at different ethnicities. We're not even accepting. So, we got a long way to go. And part of my book also delves into that because what happens is, what happened for me, I'll just tell you quickly a bit about it, is it started in 2014 very abruptly. I was not expecting it. I didn't do anything to deserve it. I'm no kind of special person, nothing like that. I went to bed at night and I was aboard a huge, what we would consider a mothership, huge, massive. And I was surprised to find that all the beings I met on board were highly evolved beings. There was nothing to be afraid of. I was never afraid during any of it. Funny thing is there's a time dilation. So I would wake up and it would be the next morning. And it was kind of like when I was there, I wasn't here. And when I was here, I wasn't there. So I'd wake up in the morning, but I had maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks worth of experiences, eating, sleeping, everything aboard this big ship. And wake up in the morning and go, wow, at first I would wake up and go, wow, that was quite new experiences and dreaming. What the heck was that? And I'd think about some of the things that I remembered. I go to bed at night and boom, I pick up exactly where I left off. So for Earth time, it happened every night, from the time I fell asleep till the time I awoke for a 3-month period of time. But I had experiences with the ETs, more like 3.5 years worth of experiences, training, experiences off-world, experiences with different kinds of beings. Was incredible. Now, this kept happening night after night, and I'm going, wait a minute, this can't be dreaming because it's too cohesive. When I dream, it doesn't make much sense. It's all over the place. I might not remember. It doesn't follow a distinct and definite storyline. But this was a definite remembering. It wasn't even like dream at all. It was very, very real. And so then my second thought was that I must be crazy, because I don't know anybody else that's having these kind of experiences. Now, since then, I have met other people who do have these experiences, and I want to add they're fairly common within the autistic community, very common. And if any of you have watched or listened to the podcast called The Telepathy Tapes, you'll understand this is now being widely known and accepted. And I don't know if it's because I'm on the spectrum or what that allowed me to have these adventures. The other thing I want to say is, I wondered for a long time, because there's gaps in the information. I wondered for a long time, I thought, where is this big ship? Like, is it in our solar system? Is it in another galaxy? Well, a star quadrant? Where is it, And then I realized, which is often how I get information, because I have a telepathic link with the beings. Nobody speaks English, trust me, on the big ship. And then I realized it's in interdimensional space. So I just want to take a second, and then I'll stop and let you ask me questions, because it's a lot of information. Really, it's quite the adventure. So if you imagine a Venn diagram is where you take a whole bunch of somewhat unrelated subjects or ways of being or doing. There's always a little overlap where they all overlap and share space. So if you can imagine a Venn diagram that looks very much like a daisy with probably thousands of petals, but in your imagination, just imagine it with 100 petals, and they all overlap at the center. Well, those petals represent transdimensional spaces, different realities, different timelines, different positions within the multiverse, like all the possibilities and more that we don't even know about. And the big ship sits in what I would call an interdimensional envelope. And it sits there so that beings from many, many different realities can come aboard, do training, learn things, leave. It's just a perfect vantage point. And it's so the big ship is actually nowhere and everywhere. And it's nearby because it doesn't involve time and space, which would also explain the time dilation. So, I met many different kinds of beings. I've got an image here. I used to have very long white hair when this happened. So these are AI generated. They are not selfies, just to be upfront. But the woman in the center represents me. But the women on either side are just different family lines or races within this. We're all the same species, but they're just different family lines. And so there's quite a bit of diversity in appearance. And even within one particular family line, like for instance, me, I'm human. You take a look at the humans on Earth, huge diversity in skin tones and eye color, and even people within the same family. One might have big ears, another one might have a big nose. Like we're all different. Same is true for extraterrestrials. There's a lot of diversity. So I just want to get that out of the way and just say that that's the basic information about the big ship. The big ship is also fully conscious. It's actually alive, as we would consider it. It's a conscious being. And so everything on the big ship, all the parts and components are all biological. And so there's no metal, there's no wood, there's no seams. Everything is tubular or ovoid in shape. And there's a lot more, but I'll just zip it there and let you ask me questions. So I'm answering what you would like to know.
Well, I would like for you to share with us some more of your experiences, just to give us an idea of what kinds of beings are trying to make contact with you, what kind of information they're giving you, what is the quality of the information, how you know for yourself that what they're telling you is useful. I can't use the word truthful. I would say useful, things like that, because that's where the real meat is, and that's the stuff that you kind of don't really hear on other podcasts.
I get into that a lot in my book, and so and way more detail. So basically, what I want to say is, from the moment I got there, I never felt afraid, and it became very apparent right away that these beings vibe on what I call the love harmonic. We on Earth don't even really know what love is. We think it's some kind of a romantic fascination, but love includes all kinds of things. So think of love as a basket, and in that basket, you've got patience, you've got mildness, you've got kindness, you've got self-control, you got a whole bunch of virtues that go in that basket. And when you're practicing all of them at once, then you're actually exercising love. And love has to be practiced towards self, really, before we can practice it towards others. And so these beings were so peaceful and so loving. They do not use voice communication. They're capable of making sounds, but they basically completely rely on telepathy. So one of the first things I had to do was to learn how to communicate with telepathy. And telepathy isn't just about broadcasting what you're thinking. Telepathy is also about not broadcasting what you're thinking. So boundaries are really important aboard the big ship. So these beings are what I would classify as at our next stage of development. Once we put away our warring ways, once we learn to get along and what love is, and we learn to love ourselves. Now, I'll give you another example. It's a silly one, but it's true. You know, if we have a child or a pet, we're not going to let it eat all the junk food at once, because that's not in its best interest. And so the same is true for ourselves. So if we have self-control, we're conscious or mindful about what we put in our body, how much sunshine and fresh air we get, how we feel when we're around certain people and different around others. It involves a whole bunch of things that are really important, and they require mastery, and it takes time to master these skills. They're absolutely skills. And I'll give you an example. I work on patients every single day, and especially with myself. And it's not easy. It's not easy to be patient with other people on social media, or that I might run into, or in traffic even. It takes a tremendous amount. We all practice, we will get good at it. It's just like any other skill. If you're learning to play the piano, you start one key at a time and it sounds terrible. But guess what? 10 years later, you're a concert pianist and you produce the most beautiful frequencies. Same thing is, and learning to vibe in the love harmonic. So these beings vibe in the love harmonic, but they're born into that as a culture. And they've had probably thousands of years to evolve into it. They used to be like us, but they're not anymore. And so that's another thing. People always ask me, what does ET think of us? And I say, they don't. And I'll tell you why they don't, is because they're busy doing what ET does. They got lives and they got careers and they got things they're doing and projects they're involved in. And quite frankly, if they were exposed to our present state of consciousness here on Earth, well, there's a few exceptions, but the majority of people, they would be really upset. They would be traumatized because they don't do that in their world or the worlds they come from. Many of them were born aboard the big ship. They choose to live on these big what we would call mother ships. I call it the big ship. Not everybody lives on planets. People live in all kinds of different environments. And so the big ship is what you would call very, very multicultural, and cross interracial relationships are very common. And so the children, they might have a mother from one place and a father from another. There's just a lot of diversity, and they don't have constructs the way we do. They don't have concepts of they don't have concepts of gender. They don't have concepts of race. They don't have concepts of political affiliation. They don't have any of that messing up their field. They just are extremely loving, patient, kind beings. And within that culture, you don't need a lot of rules. You don't have to tell people not to steal, because they wouldn't steal. They would treat other beings very pure and very highly evolved and very beautiful. And we're stepping into that. We're just going through a lot of bumps right now. And that's another thing people will get from reading my book. They'll not only be right with me in the adventure, but they will soon see that there's a way that we could live here on Earth that would make things more peaceful, more loving, more positive. There's a way that we can do this. And it's not actually even that hard, but it takes practice. And it's like a daily practice. It's just like meditation is a practice, all kinds of things. It just takes work. Are we willing to do the work? And so the other thing I want to add is there is an interdimensional and intergalactic resettlement program, but they're not going to just come in here and evacuate everybody onto another world. That wouldn't make sense, because until we're evolved to the point where we can be peaceful and loving, There's no point in importing what I call the infection or the infection of the erroneous way of thinking and being that many Earth people are stuck in. They would not move that onto the big ship or onto other ships or move that onto other worlds. No way. They're going to wait till we evolve ourselves to a certain point that we would have value to intergalactic resettlement. So that means that those of us, and I'm not even saying for sure I would be chosen, to be honest. I'm just a human being, just like everybody else. I'm not, just because I've been given the privilege of this experience and the privilege of being able to write about it doesn't mean for sure that I'm some kind of highly evolved human. You know, I take 2 steps forward, 1 back all the time. But until we do that, we're not going to get a lot of the positive contact that's possible. We're going to get some mimicry and some tricksters and, you know, because unfortunately, I guess on some frequency levels, there are beings that don't have our best interest at heart, which includes humans. And that's the other thing for those that are afraid of ET. I've never heard of ETs doing the kind of things that humans do to each other. War after war, inquisitions, hierarchies and monarchies. Oh my gosh. Colonialism. This is the scary place to be. Oh, I love your chicken. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really weird place to be. This chicken is obsessed with me. This is Patty.
Yeah. Aw. It's a special relationship.
Yeah. The thing that I wanted to ask you that I feel is most important for today is, what are the most important things that you have learned from your experiences that have changed you dramatically?
Well, even though that experience aboard the big ship lasted only for about 3 months of Earth time, even though it only happened at night, even though it happened while I was asleep, I was so deeply touched by the way these beings are, what they have done with community, what they have done with themselves. There's no religion either. They are just recognized universal consciousness, and they just have developed themselves to being the best beings they can be. I came away from that, well, not to mention the fact that they're extremely healthy and they live for a very long time. So I came away from that. Then I'd go do my grocery shopping and I'd see how we are here on Earth, our health, what we eat, how we treat each other. And it was a bit shocking. In fact, what a lot of people who have ET contact don't seem to talk much about is, am I allowed to swear on your show? Or you want me not to swear? Okay.
I swear
so
all the time.
It leaves you really fucked up. Okay, it leaves you completely fucked up. You don't know what's real, what's not. You need a lot of private space to sort yourself out. This is not like people talk about, oh yeah, I got picked up in a spaceship and we did this and that. And I went to work the next day. I could not function for like 2 years after this happened, even though it was a very positive experience, because the contrast was so huge between what I experienced there and what I experience here. So what it was like being aboard the big ship, it was like going home after being away for a very long time. It resonated so strongly with me that when I came back, I said, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep working on patience. I'm going to keep working on kindness. I'm going to keep, make myself a better person, prove that some of us are able to do this, that some of us are ready for this kind of contact. But the other thing is it's because it's the only system that works. So what happens is when you truly love and learn what love is, and you love each other, You don't murder people, you don't hurt people, you don't lie to them, you don't steal their stuff. Like all the shenanigans going on here on Earth, never going to happen aboard the big ship. It was really hard to leave, but at the same time, I know why I had to leave. It was because I had to process what I had been through so I could tell other humans about it. So even though I'm not saying all ETs are benevolent and wonderful, the ETs in my experience definitely were. It made me want to be a better person. So I started working, well, I already was working on a lot of these things, but it was really important for me to, like, for instance, respect the choices and decisions and thoughts of my grown children, and not be trying to tell them how they should be doing things or how they should be cooking a meal or how they should be raising their children, letting them make their own decisions, knowing that they would fail sometimes. And then I would be there as a kind hand to offer the support that they choose to help them move on. You know what I mean? And that's a trend. They just want to be all in there controlling their life. No, that doesn't work. You know what I mean? So, there's many examples. Being a good friend, being even a lot of my podcast guests I become friends with, and being kind to them and being good to them and being patient with them. So all of that requires a fair amount of work, but I'm happy to say I'm getting pretty good at it. I'm not perfect. And so what this also does is it removes my fear of death, because when it's my turn to pass on to the next realm, I don't have to be afraid, because I know I've done the work. I've done the shadow work. I continually do the kind of work I need to do to be more like these beings. So I want to emulate them. And the book, it's not just, oh, look at me, I had this experience. The book is to show everyone the wisdom of becoming refined human beings, becoming good at our craft, and that is being human, and seeing the beautiful results that we could be seeing right here. And I just want to throw one sort of political statement out there. The powers that be here on Earth can only exist when we give them that power. As soon as we recognize our own sovereignty and our own power and take it back, they can't feed off that anymore, and our world will change as a result.
I agree with you, and I've kind of asked myself this question my entire life, and it is this: why are we constantly at the whim of a couple hundred people who are very rich, who just hide in the shadows, and they love provoking reactions from us by starting another war? I mean, it's the same people funding both sides. They're doing it for sport. It's always been that way. So, and they're all related and inbred, just to add that. And so even back in the 17th, 18th century, 15th century, 1000 century, one family member from because the countries, they just program that into the system, but really they all kind of own everything. And so one of them will have a fight. Maybe one of them has decided she wants to be Catholic and she's in Scotland, but in England they want to be Protestant, and there's a king there. I don't know. I'm not good at history. I'm just throwing that out there, right? And so they go, I'm mad at you. Well, that's it. We're having a war. So you go and pick the poor farmers out of the field that got wives and children and everything else, and you put them in your forces and you march them out to kill each other. Whereas the king and the queen, they're never even put at risk. They're just using human beings basically as slave labor to do whatever they want, amuse them through their war processes, harvest all their food, and then all their food, a certain amount of that is you have to turn the best of everything over to the king and the queen, and then you eat the crap that's left over. And it's always been this way. And I think, I don't know what to say about in the past, but in some ways we have more power now and more education and more opportunities to form community. And again, it's about, I think, starting within to be sovereign.
and to take our power back. And then we're grounded. We got critical thinking skills. When they start to serve us the BS with certain health scares and wars and stuff, we can just laugh at it, because laughing at it probably is the best way to take the power out of it. We're just going, no, but there's still a lot of people really caught up in it, and they'll just use one trick after another, and I'm not falling for it anymore. I'm going to be a mouthy old lady till the day I die.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So are there any other insights that you want to share?
Oh, again, I want to reiterate that there are some images in my book, and they are just meant to stimulate the reader's imagination so that they can sort of a little bit relate to my experiences. These are not selfies, though. These are AI generated images. I want to be really honest about that. But all the content of my book is my real life experiences. I talk about my paranormal experiences as a child. And as a child, I was taught one of two things. If I went to family, I was told, don't talk about that. People are going to think you're crazy. I mean, and I even cover that in the book about how they use mental health as an excuse sometimes to discredit us and our actual experiences. And then when I went to churches to try to find out why I was having these experiences, then I was told I was dealing with the devil and that this was evil and I should just drop it and read my Bible. Well, I had my choice between being crazy or being evil. I didn't like either one. But I'm glad I'm the way I am. I'm very grateful for the experiences I had. I think people will love my book. It's not a hard read. It's full of excitement and adventure and new ways of looking at reality. And I think people would really, really enjoy it. And I really appreciate you having me on your show to talk about it.
Yeah, no problem. You're an easy person to talk to and a real gentle soul. I picked up on that a long time ago. So I'm happy to know you and have you on the show. If you can tell everybody where they can find you, that would be great.
Hey, sorry, I got itchy nose. I have 2 podcasts a week on Wednesday afternoon at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. I have the Quantum Guide Show, and I interview people who are offering something positive. And they're people from all over the world, all different socioeconomic backgrounds and ways of thinking and philosophies. I think it's all beautiful, like all the different gemstones. They're all beautiful. They're just a little bit different. I do once a month, the last Wednesday of the month, I actually do a conspiracy panel where we break down some of the conspiracies. My other show is the Aliens and Angels podcast. It's every Sunday at noon Mountain Time. And this is where I either talk about my own experiences or invite other people who have had ET contact or angelic contact or something like that. And we just talk about our experiences. And I do a live chat for both of those so that we're building community. I have a website that's www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com, and that's KarenHolton, healthcoach.com. I'm a different kind of health coach. I'm actually a social worker by training, and I assist people with their journeys. And so I offer services. I also sell a few items like orgone generators and crystals to help me cover my expenses, because I am not yet making any money doing this. But I'm not doing it for the money or the likes or the subs. I'm doing it because I'm compelled to. And I'm part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, and you can find my audio podcasts on all audio platforms, and it's all under the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton. And yeah, you pretty well find me anywhere. Just put into a Google search at Karen Holton TV.
Oops, sorry. I was muted there. I said great.
Yeah, it's okay.
Karen, thanks for being on the Boundless Authenticity podcast.
It was my pleasure. Anytime, and maybe you'd like to come on the Quantum Guide show when I do my scheduling for September, and maybe you'd like to come on and talk about what you're doing, the work you're doing, your wonderful podcast, your Facebook group. And I hope everybody likes and subscribes to you. Thank you so much again.
Sure thing. Thank you.
You're listening to the Boundless Authenticity Podcast, where we discuss everything related to the evolution of human consciousness.
At the very least, people need to understand that the United States builds bunkers, which are basically cities underground, every 3 months.
Basically, when you dream, you tap into your subconscious. It is your nocturnal intuition, your creativity and imagination unchained from conscious reason, ego and logic.
They're biologically alive, but they have no soul. They have AI consciousness. They can alter your conscious of the brain to get the brain.
We live in a multidimensional reality. Whether it comes through esoteric information in the spiritual realms, or the UFO people, experiencers, or mainstream through quantum physics and through mainstream science now realizing that parallel dimensions probably exist.
We're all spiritual beings. We're all having these human experiences. We've heard that phrase over and over and over. But what does that really mean?
You know, all the big questions of life, we have these answers inside of our souls.
We're ultimately studying the nature of what it is to be human, good and evil, our psychology, how we think, and our health. That's why I love Bruce Lee's great quote, all knowledge is ultimately self-knowledge.